There's more to a brainstorming session than simply pulling people together and saying, no idea is a bad idea. If you want people to think creatively, you actually need to set the conditions for that to happen. And in order to set the conditions, you need to understand how the human brain works so you can set those conditions up. In this video, I walk you through 4 critical steps in a brainstorming session, and I give you some simple activities you can use to set the scene, not just for you, but for the participants. Because if you're going to brainstorm, let's make it count. Hi, I'm Kerry Price. I'm the founder of the Facilitators Network, and I use the principles of deliberate generosity to make sure that no meeting or workshop is ever wasted. I've been facilitating for 20 odd years, and in that time I've led thousands of meetings, workshops and community conversations. Now I spend most of my time helping other trainers and facilitators do their work well. When you get a group of people together to brainstorm, you might need to add some funny stimulus, some weird questions, some unusual activities to get them thinking outside the box. But if people don't understand why you're doing that, they're just going to think you're weird and that the whole thing is pointless. So when I am facilitating a brainstorming session, I first do some experiential activities at each stage of the process so people understand why I'm inviting them to do things in a particular way. So in this video, I'm going to share with you the 4 steps to the process, but more importantly, the experiential activities that I use to set the scene so that people really want to engage. So step 1 in a brainstorming session is to make sure that you're actually brainstorming the right question. And that might sound simplistic, but one word can make all the difference to the results or the ideas that get generated. Now, before I spend time with a group actually working out which question we want to brainstorm, I illustrate the importance of getting the right question by this simple activity. Step 1 of the activity is I simply ask people to draw me a present. So grab a post-it note and a marker pen and just draw me a present. I give them 30 seconds, I assure them it doesn't need to be gallery worthy, don't overthink it, just a picture of a present please. After about 30 seconds or a minute, I invite people to peel off their post-it note and hold their picture of a present up for everyone to see. Now, almost always you will get a room full of pictures that look something like that. 20 different versions of a box with a ribbon around it. The second step of the activity is I thank them for their presents and now invite them to draw a picture of the perfect present. When that happens, I get pictures of bottles of wine and movie tickets and vacations, massages. Suddenly, the introduction of one word, a perfect present, not just a present, completely changes the diversity and the quality of the ideas that are brought forward. Now, when people realize that just one word can completely change the ideas that are brought forward, they're happier to spend time crafting the right question before jumping into the brainstorming itself. Step 2 of the brainstorming process is you really need to give people a chance to brainstorm on their own first, before they start bouncing ideas. Now for the extroverts in the room, they don't understand why this is important. They just want to start bouncing off each other and getting really creative. So to illustrate why this is important, I do this simple exercise with them first. Step 1 is I simply invite people to draw me a dog. And I assure them it doesn't need to be gallery worthy, just a dog, whatever comes to mind. Step 2, I invite them to draw a cat. Again, doesn't need to be gallery worthy, we just need to know it's a cat. And then step 3 is draw me a mouse. So we end up with 3 pictures, dog, cat, mouse. Now once everyone's had a chance to draw their 3 pictures, I invite everyone to hold their pictures up one at a time. First, I invite them to show me their dog. My dog's pretty terrible, but it's got a head and a body and 4 legs and a tail. I then invite people to show me the picture of their cat. We often get cat faces with whiskers and the weird kind of smiley mouth. And then step 3 is I invite people to show me their mouse. And almost without fail, you get a room full of mice that are little furry creatures with tail and ears and whiskers. Once they've shown me that, I say, isn't it interesting that we've all ended up with a slightly different version of a furry little creature, and nobody thought to draw a computer mouse? Imagine how that would have changed if I'd started with draw me a laptop, draw me a keyboard, and then draw me a mouse. It's at that point that the penny drops, and we talk about how we are influenced on the ideas that we share based on the ideas that have come before. That's why it's important that you give people a chance to brainstorm on their own first. So depending on who you listen to, you might hear this referred to as solo writing, solo storming, or I call it together alone. So I invite people to grab a post-it note and just download all of the ideas that are already in their mind, one idea per post-it note. That means when it comes to the small group discussion, those ideas haven't been influenced by anything else around them yet. They've come from a person's brain without dogs or cats getting in the way. Step 3 in the brainstorming process is to invite people to get into small groups and share their thinking. So step 1, we got the question right. Step 2, we did some brainstorming alone. Now you get to share your ideas with others. But here's the thing that happens in small groups. Someone shares a really good idea and immediately someone says, that's a great idea, but, and tells you why it's actually a terrible idea. You spend the next 10 minutes debating whether that idea is good or not, and none of the other ideas even get brought to the table. Now, we know this kind of at a head level, but it's a whole other thing to experience that in action. So to share the importance of withholding the yeah buts, I run this quick activity with groups before they go into those small group discussions. And it happens in 2 parts. The first part is I invite people to find a partner and imagine that they are planning a party. The instructions are pretty clear. They can make the party about whatever they like. It doesn't have to be for work. It doesn't have to be for a specific reason. They're just planning a party because they want to have a party. Now, the first person comes up with an idea, and it might be something like, I think we should have our party on a boat. And their partner must respond with, that's a great idea, but, and tell them why it's actually a stupid idea. Once they've shared why it's a stupid idea, they need to add to it by saying, I think we should. So it might sound something like, I think we should have our party on a boat. That's a great idea, but people get seasick, they might not come. If they do come, they might not enjoy themselves. I think we should have it in a marquee, or whatever it might be. The first person then responds with the same prompts, which you can see on the graphics here. I think that's a great idea, but I think we should have it in a hall, or whatever it might be. I let that go on for 2 or 3 minutes to the point where people get bored and disengaged and wonder why on earth we're doing this activity. And then I draw it to a close and invite people to share what they noticed. What they noticed is that people tuned out and it got harder and harder to come up with new ideas. I then reflect back to them that that's often what happens when we go into small group discussions around ideation, and that I want to give them a different way of having that conversation or a different mindset. So this time I invite them to stay with the same partner and this time plan a holiday. They've got as much money to spend as they like. The world is their oyster. They can go wherever they choose. But the instructions are slightly different. This time, the first person comes up with an idea, and it might be something like, I think we should go to Samoa. And your partner must respond with, that's a great idea. And then we could, and add to the idea. So it might sound something like, I think we should go to Samoa. Oh, that's a great idea. And then when we're there, we can go on those cooking classes and learn how to make all that yummy Samoan food. And then your partner must respond with, that's a great idea. And then we could get in a hot air balloon and fly all the way to Fiji. That's it. You get the picture. So I let that activity run for a couple of minutes and it gets noisy and it gets excited and it gets boisterous. And it's often hard to wind the conversation up. But when I do, I say, what do you notice? And what comes out is that it was much easier to come up with ideas. And surprisingly, what comes out is people want to go on this holiday. As ridiculous and far-fetched as the holidays that they designed, they suddenly think it's actually possible because they're excited about it. So I then relate that back to our small group discussions, that if we want to get excited about ideas and do things that are actually creative and innovative and a bit different than what we're doing now, we need to give people a chance to explore the idea, get excited about it, add to it, before we worry about butting it and looking at the risks. Because there is no such thing as a perfect idea. And yes, we'll get to the buts. Yes, we'll get to the risks, but not right now. Right now is just about saying, imagine if. Step 4 in the brainstorming process is to add some stimulus to the thinking. So it's one thing to say, think outside the box, but the thing is, our brains aren't programmed to think that way. We need to add stimulus to get people thinking differently. Now, to make this really obvious to people in the room, I play a quick game called Guess the Number. And what it is I invite people to bring something to the circle that represents them. It might be their drink bottle, their car keys, their pen. We sit in a circle and slowly, one by one, put those things into the middle. I then ask for a volunteer to leave the room and explain that the rest of the group is going to choose a number. I'll arrange the items, and then the person will come back into the room and try and guess what number the rest of the group chose. So a person leaves the room. I spend a lot of time and energy arranging these items. The person comes back in, and they have no idea what they're looking for. In the first few times, people are just randomly guessing. But here's the trick. How I arrange the items has nothing to do with the number that people have chosen. I'm actually signaling the number by the amount of fingers I'm putting on my knee. So what this shows people in the end is that we're often looking for solutions where we think we're going to find the answer. And often we need to think outside of that, like on the person's lap, for example, to find the answer. Once people are clued up to that, they're much more comfortable with you introducing weird and wonderful stimulus to get them thinking differently. So those 4 steps to the brainstorming session make it pretty easy to come up with lots and lots of ideas. But that's the easy bit. Making a decision around which ideas you want to move forward with next, that's where it gets more tricky. In my next video, how to facilitate group decision making, I share 3 activities that make it easier for groups to make a decision. And I also share some magic questions that help you bring together 2 opposing views. The link's in the description below. Go check it out.